everybody, I'm Mark. This is Bob for Personal Combat Defense Systems, and this is the third video in a series on self-defense weapons. Today we're going to talk about pepper spray, stun guns, and tasers. I'm going to start with the pepper spray. I got a lot of spicy information for you. So there's a lot of reasons that I think the pepper spray is a great option to carry, and it's also a good thing to carry with other self-defense weapons. The reason being is it's a non-lethal option. So a lot of people we talked about in the first video, they may not have it in them to pull a knife or a firearm on somebody. They may second guess themselves in that moment. They may hesitate. And pepper spray, you can be confident that unless they're allergic to red pepper or something, that they're going to be fine, and you can rest easy with your conscience. Now, on the other hand, you have people who do carry firearms, they do carry knives, and they're ready to deploy those at any given moment. But the fact of the matter is, statistically speaking, you're more likely to be in need of pepper spray and not a lethal option. If you use lethal force in a time that you're not justified to use lethal force, you are going to be in big trouble with the law. So pepper spray is definitely a good thing to carry along with a more lethal option if that's what you choose. Speaking of statistics, pepper spray is 85% effective. This is including law enforcement. So the statistics are pretty good with this, and people have had pretty good results, unlike the stun gun. Another reason is that it's socially acceptable. Let's just say you meet up with some friends at the bar or at the coffee shop, and you show up and you sit down, you have your coffee, you set your coffee down, and you set your 9mm on the table. It's gonna be kind of weird, gonna be kind of awkward. People are gonna look at you. People are gonna look at you funny, and you're gonna make everybody uncomfortable. But the fact is if you have this and it's attached to your keys and you set it on the table, nobody thinks anything of it. Same with business offices, wherever you're at, it's a pretty common thing. It's very non-threatening, and most people, it doesn't even register in their minds that it's there and it's attached to your keys and that it's out. Now, something that's very important is that not all pepper sprays are created equal, not by a long shot. The EPA actually strongly regulates pepper sprays that are used on animals. So this is to make sure that it's going to be effective. It's also to make sure that it's going to be humane enough for the animal, depending on what the spray is designed for. There are absolutely no regulations on pepper spray that is designed for people. Because of this, there's a lot of companies out there that they're using deceiving terms and deceiving ways to market their product when it's actually a much less of a product. It's not as strong as what you could have. So there's three different ways that pepper spray companies are going to rate the effectiveness and the strength of their pepper sprays. It's very deceiving, and you may find actually two of them listed on the container, on the bottle itself, on the advertisement. At the same time, it may not say anything at all, so you have to get to the website and look up the MSDS, which is the Material Safety Data Sheet, and it's going to give you all the information. If you can't get a hold of that sheet, if you can't find it on their website, it's probably a really crappy pepper spray and not something that you want to rely on for your safety. The first way that it is measured is called OC, and sometimes people replace pepper spray with OC spray. Now, OC is oleo resin capsicum, and what this does is it measures the percentage of pepper inside of the spray. Now, so if it says 2%, 3%, 10%, that is the percentage of pepper versus the rest of the formula in the spray. The problem is it doesn't tell you how hot and effective the pepper itself is. So the next rating is going to be Scoville heat units, and that's going to be SHU. If you're into hot foods, hot peppers, and all that stuff, you've probably seen it, maybe at the wing place they'll actually have it, and that tells you on the heat scale how hot these wings are or how hot the peppers are. So the problem with this is they don't tell you how much of that pepper is actually inside the spray. So these first two ways of measuring the effectiveness and the strength are not good ways to do this, because you don't have the full picture. So let's say you have a pepper spray that gives you the OCs and the SHU, okay? The SHU, let's just say that it's 5 million. Okay, 5 million, I think it's like the hottest pepper in the world or something like that. So you have 5 million SHU. That's awesome, that's super hot, right? But then you look at the OCs and it says 2%. So it's 2% of that formula. So in the end, the product itself is not 5 million SHUs. It's 2% of. Now it's 100,000 SHUs. 100,000 is a big number, but it's not very hot on the Scoville heat unit scale. So that's where you run into the problems, and you're finding a product that is definitely deceiving you. And just for that purpose alone, I wouldn't purchase the product. I don't appreciate being deceived. Now, the last unit of measurement is MC, or major capacitanoids, and the EPA says that this is the pain-producing components in the formula. It's measured by percentage, it's accurate, and it's reliable. The lowest it's going to be kind of effective is about 0.3%. The highest, I'm not really sure what the highest is, but on most of the Sabre products that I use that are a law enforcement equivalent, meaning that law enforcement carries the same products, you're going to get 1.33%. And that's very straightforward, and it's very trustworthy, and that's what I like, and that's what I go by. Now, Sabre, amongst other brands, has what's called a 3-in-1 formula. It has the pepper spray, but in addition, there's also tear gas added to it. Tear gas has a little bit of a delayed reaction, but when it hits, it sure packs a punch. And the third thing that's in it is UV dye. So even if your attacker that you sprayed with the spray runs off, washes everything off their face, which they're going to be highly inclined to do because it burns, they can still be identified because of the dye that you can't see in the regular light. All it takes is UV light just like this, and you will see the dye, and you'll be able to identify who the person is. So there's a lot of different options out there for the way the pepper spray is released into the air and the way that the can shoots the spray. Some are definitely better than others. The first one is the foam. The foam is like a shaving cream type substance. It doesn't shoot very far, so you're at close range. Being that you're in close range, you can imagine shaving cream kind of building up on my face if you sprayed me, and I'm doing this, and it could fling back on you pretty easily. It's not the best. I wouldn't use the foam really for anything at all. The next is going to be your fog, and it comes in a spray, and they also have these little fogger grenades. You have to be careful with the fogs because if you're outside, it can be very short-lived, and maybe the wind is gonna blow right back at you because it is a fog, it is a mist, it's gonna be very fine particles in the air. Now, pepper spray is designed usually not just for getting in their eyes, but having respiratory distress. You can see this if you ever spray on a paper towel and just smell the spray, you get an idea of what it would do to your respiratory system if you actually inhale it directly. But again, if you're outside, you're going to have issues with the wind and it dispersing quickly. It is good for multiple attackers though, because it shoots up to 25 feet I've seen. So if you have multiple people, you can kind of fog an area and hopefully make a quick escape. I would see this being good maybe in a situation where you're indoors, you have somebody coming from that direction, and you're gonna go that direction. So you fog them, you fog this area, and you make your escape. You just have to be very careful you're not gonna go back the way that you fogged. This isn't a bad idea for a home situation. You will get the OC, the pepper spray, you'll kind of get it all over your house, but it's better than something happening to you, your well-being, your loved ones. Someone could come into your house as long as you have a way out. It's not a bad option. Personally, if I have multiple people intruding on my home and kicking in my door, I have some different ideas on how to handle that situation, but to each their own. So the next version is the cone. So it comes out cone shaped. It comes out of a little hole and just keeps getting wider. This is really good because you don't have to worry so much about aim. You're gonna have good coverage. You're gonna have a good inhalation effect. Now, the problem with that though is that you still have to worry a little bit about the wind and blowing back at you, but not nearly as much as you would with the fog. I do like the cone. I don't think it's a bad option. Just if you live in like Atlantic City or Chicago or something like that, maybe it's not a good option to carry. The next option is Stream, and this is probably the classic pepper spray deployment style, right? So the Stream is just a spray, it's a liquid, it comes out tight like maybe out of a water pistol. You're gonna have good distance, you're gonna get some inhalation effect. It's gonna be less affected by the wind and even the rain because of the force that it comes out of the container. Now, the only downside is if you're in a tight spot, an elevator, maybe backed into a corner of a dorm room, maybe you're inside of a car, inside of a vehicle, and there's a hard object. You spray the stream, and it can ricochet and come back and hit you. So that's the one downside of it, and the one thing to consider. But all in all, the stream is definitely my vote. And the last one, and probably the most modern, and what I see a lot in the market nowadays, is the pepper spray gel. Now the gel, it even says, like on Amazon, when they like Saber does this, when they advertise it, it says, quote, gel is safer. And it is safer in the sense that it's not going to ricochet back onto you. The wind and the rain, or the wind really isn't going to have it blow back onto you. So it's very safe in that respect. But the problem is you will get zero inhalation effect because it is a gel. They're not going to breathe any particles into their lungs. And the other downside is it does take a few moments to kick in. And you know, my understanding of violence is that it happens really fast. And you know, time is really not on our side. So you're going to want this to kick in and affect them quickly. You don't want them to realize what you did. Now you've escalated the situation. Maybe you can't just get away at that point because it hasn't taken effect. You know, I have mixed feelings about the gel, but definitely, you know, figure out what's best for you and what you feel most comfortable with. My vote is going to be for the classic stream. So there's all different types of variations of cans as well. You know, you have these little ones that just fit in your hand. They do make them even smaller than this. You know, I have this one. It comes in this nifty little belt case I can carry around right here. You know, it's a little bit wider of a can, so you're definitely going to get a little bit more spray out of it. They make them bigger yet. You know, I like to carry one of these in my car. I actually have another one over there for my passenger, just in case they need to spray somebody. Hey, it's good to be prepared. Now, with most pepper sprays out there, you're going to want to hold the can at between 10 and 2 o'clock. This way that the spray deploys properly. Now Saber, you can't really see the label because I have Velcro there, because I stick this to a very convenient place where I have it hidden secretly. But this is Crossfire, and this you can actually spray upside down. You can spray it from any direction in any way. I'm not sure they call it Crossfire though. They should call it like upside down fire. There's a lot of different methods out there for safeties on them, but we're going to look at the two most common ones, and these go across multiple brands. The first one is this little red tab right there. You put your thumb on it, you slide it over, and you are in position to spray. A lot of people complain about these. They throw them in their purse, they throw them in their bag, it slides open, and they get pepper spray all over their stuff. I don't feel bad for you, because like I said in the first video, you know, this needs to be accessible and it needs to be ready, because if it's not accessible, it's no good to you. And if you go digging to get it at the wrong time, that could be your biggest mistake in the situation. So as long as you have this accessible and in a safe place, that shouldn't happen to you. The other type of safety is this little flip top thumb safety, right? So if I put it like that, can't spray it, I have to lift it up, slip my thumb in underneath, and then we're good to go. Now, on the note of the thumb, a lot of people want to use their index finger. They want to come up like this, and they want to point forward like this. Two reasons that this is not good. A lot of these are actually harder to push than you realize. So if you don't have a lot of hand strength, your thumb is going to be way more powerful. You're going to go like this with your pinky, and it's not going to work. You're going to have to switch your grip and go to your thumb if you can't get the button pushed down. The other thing is, because of the shape of this and my hand, which I don't have like big hands, I'm not a huge guy or anything, when I slip my finger in here, you can see my hand position. I'm holding on to it. Even if I crunch it up like this, now I'm just holding the bottom of it. I don't have a great grip on it. There's all this space in here. So I don't have a firm grip. It can be knocked out of my hand. It can be taken. There's actual finger grooves in here for a reason, that you hold it like this. So you have a nice tight grip, like a fist, and you can slip your thumb open, aim, and spray. At the same time, you always want to have a backup plan. It's 85% effective. So what if this is a situation where it's 15% not effective? What if you miss? What if whatever happens and you need to do more. You already have a striking device in your hand, you spray them, now you have a way to strike and a way to hit them, and we're going to talk about with force multipliers in the next video. Pepper spray cans do have an expiration date, but just for your knowledge, nothing actually happens to the product inside. The reason that there's an expiration date is because typically the can will start to lose pressure. At this point, I will then go ahead and bring them to class, and we can deploy them out back and just do whatever with them. But you definitely want to get them replaced. You're talking about your safety here, so when it expires, replace it. Speaking of pressure in the can, you know, when a liquid heats up, the molecules move quicker. It adds pressure, so they will fire a little bit differently in the if you're where I am in Pennsylvania, in the middle of summer versus the middle of winter. So if you have a 90-degree day and that's when you test it, and your spray shoots 15 feet, it may only shoot 10 feet in the middle of January or February. When you go to buy your pepper spray, I strongly suggest that you buy two. One is going to be for your carry, and the other one is going to be for use to deploy in your backyard. You definitely want to know your weapon. The first time people deploy pepper spray, they're usually surprised by any number of things. So you definitely want to go out and see what it's like. If you got anything that's going to be more of the mist or the fog, you know, maybe do it on a slightly windy day, see if you can smell it, see if it affects you in any kind of way. You know, and the other thing is definitely read the directions. A lot of them are going to be, you know, short 3-second bursts, 1 or 2 second bursts. It's going to be a little bit varied between spray to spray. So you definitely want to look at those directions and make sure that you do that when you practice, when you train. Now Sabre has a product out there. It's a Sabre flashlight pepper spray. It is pretty neat. It's a flashlight on one side and you flip it over and it's pepper spray on the other. But I have a pretty big problem with this because when you are under stress, when your body is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, everything changes. There's so many things that happen. And one of the first things that happens is your ability to process kind of goes away, and your fine motor skills go away. So there's a very likely chance that you're going to end up pushing the light button when you meant to push the spray button, or it's just going to be turned around the other way because the light's on one end and the spray is on the other. In my personal opinion, in the type of situation where you're going to need to deploy the spray, that is way too much information and it is way too complex. So I don't recommend that. If you want to have a light separate. So the last thing I want to talk about are these pepper spray and pepper ball guns. Now, I'm not a real big fan of these, to be honest. I know that they're pretty effective, they're pretty powerful. You know, it's got a nice feel and it's easy to aim. But the problem with them is they look like guns. So you're taking a situation that doesn't call for lethal force, or maybe you don't have it in you to use lethal force. But let's just say it doesn't call for lethal force and you pull out what looks like a gun. That attacker may have a knife, they may have lethal options themselves. They don't recognize that as a pepper spray, and they turn around and they pull a knife or they pull a real gun on you. I think that that's a really big risk and it's something to consider. I know that these guns they look a little bit different, but there's a lot of different types of firearms out there now that look a little bit different. And as far as the color, they do make them in different colors. Real firearms these days don't always look like real firearms, and they even have them where the firearm itself is orange. So that is a huge thing to think about, that when you draw that weapon that looks like a firearm, you are going to escalate that situation. The last thing I want to talk about is something that a lot of people get wrong. I know that I did, that's why I bought it, and that's why I have it right here, and that is bear spray. The way I figured it is that if it stops a bear, it's going to stop you, right? But not necessarily. The thing is a bear has 7 times the smell as a hound dog, so you don't really need all that extra product to stop them. You know, and because the sprays that are made for animals are regulated by the EPA, it needs to be humane to a large degree, and bear spray is actually not nearly as strong as the spray for people. So, you know, as cool as it sounds, as effective as it sounds, bear spray is probably not the way to go to stop a human attacker. Hey guys, I know this video is getting pretty long and I keep saying this is the last thing, and the last thing, and the last thing is, but the last thing is, there's a thing I keep seeing on the internet and I've seen it for years. It's all about hornet spray or wasp spray because it's in a big can, it shoots 20 feet, it's a dangerous chemical and it's good for self-defense. I'm here to tell you it's not. There's been a lot of people out there, crazy people, who have actually experimented with this and it really doesn't do much to people. Yes, it's dangerous, yes, it's a poison, but you are not going to stop somebody who's attacking you with this. You're probably just going to get them very upset. So, I gotta tell you, stay away from the wasp spray for self-defense. Use pepper spray that is designed for people. Alright, so that was definitely the last thing as it pertains to pepper spray for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. I know I mentioned Saber a few times, but there's definitely some other good brands out there. Just use the information you got from this video to make sure it's as effective as you would like it to be. Personally, I have different pepper sprays for different purposes and different places for different reasons. That might be something that you want to do. So I hope it was helpful. So the other self-defense weapon or weapons that I wanted to talk about in this video, and this will be pretty brief in comparison, is stun guns and tasers. Now a lot of people use that word interchangeably, but they are two very different things. So the taser is typically carried by law enforcement, although they are available to anybody. Some of them have a gun shape, but they look different enough that it's not as easily mistaken for a firearm. They have these two barbs that shoot out and they're attached to a wire. Usually it's about 10 to 25 feet. Most of the time on these, you have to hold down the trigger and it creates a pretty big electrical shock, a lot more than the stun gun. What this does is it creates a neuromuscular incapacitation, so their muscles lock up and they're kind of frozen there. This gives the law enforcement officers a chance to actually apprehend and cuff the bad guy. These can get pretty expensive, but they do make some down around $350. The bad thing about these is that you get one shot, and if you miss, you're kind of out of luck and you need to move on to plan B. The other thing too is that it's not very common, but there's definitely cases where people have been able to fight the taser. These people are usually very large, very strong, and possibly they're on drugs, usually something like PCP. There's even been cases where the bad guys have actually pulled the tasers out and been able to fight. So that is definitely something to consider, although I don't know the percentage on that. I can't really see it being more than 15%, which is the same as pepper spray. Now the Taser Pulse is a very specific model of taser and it is $350. This is designed for self-defense. So for our purposes, our goal is to escape to safety where the police want to actually apprehend the person. So what the Taser Pulse does is you shoot and it automatically goes off for 30 seconds. So at that point, once you shoot the bad guy, you set the taser down, you drop it, and you run, you get away. You have 30 seconds to get away. So for our purposes, being self-defense, if you're going to go with the taser, I would go with the Taser Pulse. Now the stun guns are a little bit different. Now first off, we talk in class that you want to keep a safe distance. You want to be at least at arm's length away. But with the stun gun, you actually have to be able to touch them with it, and not only that, but you have to touch bare skin for it to be, any kind of effective. And this can be difficult depending on the clothing that they're wearing. The other thing is they're usually on the bulky side. You're not going to just hang it off your keys or hang it off your belt. Chances are, with that being said, they're going to end up pretty inaccessible, buried somewhere in a bag, and an inaccessible weapon is a completely worthless weapon. Now they do make flashlight versions that are a little bit smaller, like the one I have that I was playing with at the beginning of the video, but the problem with these is, especially mine, is there's 3 different buttons, and it's the on, off, the light on, the strobe light, the taser, but the taser doesn't work if the light's on in this setting with this slider, and it's just too complicated. And just like the Saber pepper spray flashlight in one, it's a little bit complicated to use when you are under stress, so it's probably not the best idea. And the biggest problem I have with the stun guns is they don't do anything to anybody. They're just not powerful. They don't So unless you skipped ahead to this part of the video, you may have realized at the beginning that, I zapped myself with my own stun gun and that I was willing to do that. But at no point did I spray myself with pepper spray. And that's because they're very, very different types of things. The minute I pull that stun gun away or take my finger off of the zap button, the pain goes away. And it only takes seconds for my arm to feel completely normal again. So as sharp and quick and as a discomfort as it was, it's over like that. The pepper spray is going to be long lasting. This is what we talk about a lot of the time in hand-to-hand combat with pain versus injury. Now there's been plenty of times in sparring that I've gone bone to bone with somebody, two shins clanking together. It does not feel good, but you keep going because you don't want to stop. And this is just in class, But about a year and a half ago, I took a flying sidekick to the groin and I was not wearing a cup. I dropped like a sack of potatoes, and I'm going to tell you right now, I stayed down for a couple of days. This really affected me and there was no continuing. That is the type of injury that we want in a self-defense situation. I'm going to sound like Cobra Kai here for a minute, but if they can't see, they can't fight. If they can't breathe, they can't fight. If they can't walk, well, they actually can still fight. But the fact of the matter is we don't want to fight. This is self-defense. We want to get away from the situation. So if they can't walk, well, they can't run, they can't chase us. So this is the type of mentality that we want to take on in a real life self-defense situation. Now we all know what it's like to walk around the house at night and stub our toe on a corner of a table, or maybe we're walking around barefoot and we step on something sharp. And right away it's our instinct to go to that site of pain, or you get stung by a bee and you go right to that site of pain. This is no different with a stun gun when you stick it in the side of a bad guy's neck. Chances are, if he chose you as a target, he's bigger, faster, and stronger. Which means all he's got to do is pull that away. He goes right to that site of pain, pulls it away. And then what happens? You can use your imagination. Now, with pepper spray, even if it doesn't work, even if this is some of the 15% that the pepper spray doesn't work, you have definitely affected this person. Hopefully you've affected their breathing through the inhalation effect, but if not, they have involuntary eye closure and their vision is completely compromised. And at that point, you can use hand-to-hand combatives to finish them off more easily and do what you need to do to get away from the situation. The stun gun pretty much is just going to escalate and really, really make them mad. It's not going to have a lasting effect even seconds later. So as far as the stun gun goes, I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 thumbs down. I don't recommend it. I honestly think that you were better off with basic hand-to-hand combatives and just not carrying anything at all. Now for the tasers, if you get something that's designed for self-defense and personal protection, like the Taser Pulse, or a brand and model that's similar to it that has the same functions, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 1 thumb up, maybe slightly pointed to the side a little bit because you only get 1 try. Okay, that's it for this video. I know there's a lot of information crammed in there, but I hope it was helpful and hope you can put it to use. The next video is going to be on force multipliers, and as always, stay safe out there.